I was recently learning how to test applications using the React testing library. I did a lot of research, did some learning, and then I go to finally write some tests in my project here, and it's a React application where I'm also using Redux. And so I have this sign up component, and I'm like, yeah, I'll write a test for that because that's probably one of the first ones they'll use. So I make my sign up.test.js. I do my import React from React. And then this isn't the complete test, of course, but I would just want this test to pass as is, just to make sure that I have everything set up right and that I have the sign up component in there. So we save that, come down here, npm run test, and it fails. The above error occurred in the sign up component, and I'm seeing the connect function with the Redux. Could not find store in the context of connect sign up, either wrap the root component in a provider. So I'm like, great. Not only am I learning how to write tests with React testing library, but I also have to learn how to write tests with components that are using Redux in React testing library. And I was really concerned because it says you have to wrap it with a provider, and if you go into my index.js, I have my whole entire application wrapped in a provider here. So I was instantly stuck. Do some more research on the Redux website under writing tests. We can use the wrapper option in the render function and export our own render function as explained in React Testing Library's setup docs. And I looked at those. And what they were doing was, instead of using the render and fire event and things from the React Testing Library, they have this test utilities function where they bring in the library and then they wrap a provider around whatever component they're sending in, and then they export the library and then override the render method with their own custom render method. And then they just pull it out of the test utilities file instead of the React testing library, which is exactly what they're doing here. They have this render as React testing library render. You bring in your own reducer. You're actually bringing in a provider from Redux. Then you have your own render method where you pass in the UI, that'd be your component. And you have a configure store here where you configure your store, send in the reducer. It says bring in your own reducer. You can do a slice of your reducer, like if you're doing combine reducer and you have a few different individual reducers, you can send in one of those, or just bring in your whole root reducer, which is what I did. And then it wraps the provider around your component, and then this whole render function returns this new React testing library render function, where we pass the wrapper around the component. And then so we're exporting everything from the React testing library and exporting this custom render function. So that's in the test utilities file. And then when you're testing, you import the render function and whatever you want to use to test from the test utilities file. So then I'm like, okay, I'll make a test utilities file and bring in all this code, maybe customize it a bit. I'm gonna quit this from running. So then in my source folder, I'll do a test utilities.js. So we'll have to import our own reducer, which we'll then put in as an object in this reducer key of this object that we're sending into configure store. So if I go to my index.js, I have this root reducer where I have 3 different reducers. And I tried to export this const root reducer, and then I tried to do like a import reducer from the index file, and then it was already an object, so then I just put it right here, and it seemed like it would work, but I had an issue with exporting something in this file before I was rendering the app to the index.html that's referring to. So what I had to do was make another reducer file where I have to import this combine reducers from Redux. Yeah, so we can get rid of it here. And then bring that into that file. And then I have to bring in these reducers. Let's take those out of there as well. And then I'll do a export default root reducer. And so here I'll just do a import root reducer from reducer. So that takes care of that one. Back in our test utilities, we're going to import, it's not a named import anymore, import root reducer from, my dog says hi, from reducer. So bringing in our reducer, configuring the store with our reducer, and then last thing, this configure store we're getting from Redux Toolkit, which we also have to install. But what Redux Toolkit is pretty cool. So it's a way to more quickly and easily make a Redux store. You see, it was originally created to help address some common concerns about Redux. Configuring a Redux store is too complicated. I have to add a lot of packages to get Redux to do anything useful. Redux requires too much boilerplate code. And so they came out with this to make it a lot easier. And it is awesome. Although, of course, I still recommend learning all of that boilerplate code because most applications will be using it and you'll have to work with it also. But for writing tests, it's nice to have something that's quick and easy just for the test to work properly. And so this configure store that you get with it, see, wraps create store to provide simplified configuration options and good defaults. It can automatically combine your slice reducers, adds whatever Redux middleware you supply, includes Redux Thunk by default, which is awesome because that's what I think most people use. That's definitely what I use. And enables use of the Redux tools, the Redux Dev Tools extension. So very cool. And then you can do like a create reducer, create action, create async thunk, stuff like that. I haven't got that far yet, but so that's what this configure store is, and it just lets you quickly make a Redux store in this render function and then be able to test with a provider wrapping your component that you're testing. So we'll have to install this. I'll copy that. npm install -- save. So I think we're ready to test. Now from our test file, we want to import from this file because we're exporting the React library and then overriding the render method with this custom render method. So in our test file, we want to import these from our, I have to go up a level, our test utilities here. Save that. And also, one more thing that I also had an issue with was I still had a problem with testing my component and this document.getElementById where it connects our application to the index HTML file. I had an issue with that and I had to do this double pipe or document.createElement div. Let's do for testing. And yeah, that was like another issue I hit, and that fixed that. So this is saved. If we now do npm run test, test passed. So it's now connected and working with Redux. And so that was just my initial being able to test components with Redux. And it took a lot to get over that initial barrier. So I wanted to show you guys some of the spots that I had issues with and how I got past it. And now there'll be more that I'm going to get into with the mocking, API calls and mocking data and dispatching actions and whatnot. So I'll make another video or two after I implement those, but I wanted to show you this while it was fresh in my mind because I'm sure someone else will also hit these roadblocks as well. So anyways, hope it helped you out, and that's all for today. Thank you for watching.